and good morning. I'm Cheryl Casoni. I'm in for Maria Bartiromo. It is Wednesday. It is June 17th. It is 7 a.m. on the East Coast. President Trump tapping Keith Sonderling to serve as acting Labor Secretary following the resignation of Lori Chavez-DeRemer. The Deputy Labor Secretary serves as the Labor Department's Chief Operating Officer, overseeing day-to-day operations of all 17,000 employees, while coordinating with other interdepartment agencies. Business groups and administration officials view the longtime labor policy advisor as a key architect of the administration's workforce agenda. And joining me now is the man himself, acting Labor Secretary Keith Sonderling. Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to have you here. We appreciate your time. Tell us, what are your priorities taking on this new role?
Well, first of all, it's an honor of my lifetime to serve as the acting Secretary of Labor. There's just so much amazing things that President Trump's administration continues to do for the American worker and American job creators. But this morning, I want to make an announcement. I have the honor of serving on the President's Task Force to Eliminate Fraud, led by Vice President Vance, and he's made it his commitment to make a generational change to stop fraud in certain payment systems. At the Department of Labor, the unemployment insurance system during the Biden administration experienced one of the largest thefts of taxpayer dollars in U.S. history. Around $900 billion was given out during the COVID era related to unemployment insurance, and $135 billion of that was stolen by fraud. Payments went to people under 14 years old, to prisoners, to dead people, to people over 115. And most egregiously, somebody who was born in the year 2154 was able to apply for unemployment insurance and get it. But the Vice President's task force is eliminating all of this fraud. And just this morning, I sent a letter to 53 governors of states and territories saying the Department of Labor is going to take unprecedented action to stop this fraud. I have warned, along with my Inspector General at the Department of Labor, Anthony D'Esposito, that we will use every resource we have to stop states from making fraudulent unemployment insurance payments, including, for the first time in history, cutting off administrative funds to those states who aren't complying. So we're requiring states now to make sure that we stop paying first and verify later. We are going to verify first, verify that these are people, verify that the money's not going to gangs and criminal organizations, verifying that the money's not going overseas, verifying that the person is who they say they are and they're actually eligible for unemployment. Look, unemployment is supposed to just be a temporary bridge for people who lost their jobs to get back in the workforce, not a scam to rip off taxpayer dollars. And unfortunately, that's what happened during the Biden administration. And specifically, I called out a few states that continue to have the most fraud. New York is paying over $2 million a day in improper payments related to unemployment insurance. California owes over $20 billion to a trust fund. And between New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, and Illinois, they've paid last year over $2.5 billion of improper payments. And due to the Vice President's leadership and the task force, this is stopping, and I'm going to use every available tool the Department of Labor has to hold these governors accountable to stop the theft of your taxpayer dollars.
You're certainly putting these governors on notice, and thank you for breaking that news with Fox Business this morning. We certainly appreciate it, Keith. But at the same time, I wanted to ask you about, kind of the semantics of all of this and the enforcement, because you can tell that these governors that you are going to, as you say, put them on notice, because no one wants to see, federal tax money thrown out the window. Because, frankly, we've been seeing this since the COVID pandemic, and it's just been continuing. At the same time, how do you enforce these plans with these governors to make sure that they comply?
Well, two ways. One, we will be making referrals to our Inspector General, who has criminal authority, and he will be prosecuting not only the bad actors, but also going after states who are going to not actually put these controls that are required. And from the Department of Labor's perspective, from my perspective, we're giving all the guidance. We're telling them the tools to use. We're telling them the technology to use. We're telling them how to verify. We're telling them how to confirm with the employer that these employees actually work there and that they're eligible. But more importantly, too, we're making sure that one Social Security number can't apply for unemployment insurance in multiple states that we saw during the COVID era, that people who are in prison, that people who are on the no pay list aren't eligible for unemployment insurance. And here's the kicker. If they don't, I will be the first Secretary of Labor to cut off the state's administrative funding. So to answer your question, because of the leadership of the Vice President and the task force and the President's commitment to stopping fraud, I will essentially cut off the state's administrative funds, and then they won't be able to administer this unemployment insurance due to the fraud. Now, we want to make sure that people who are actually eligible for this, who need to get back in the workforce, are getting it, but this is going to be on the governors, and especially the Democrat governors, and that's one of the states where we see the highest fraud. So they are on notice that they will be hurting their own citizens if they continue to allow people's taxpayer dollars to be stolen. And where we see this money going, like I said before, it's going to gangs, it's going to criminal rings. That money is buying guns and drugs and harming those communities. So that needs to stop, and this president is committed to stopping fraud across the board. And as your Secretary of Labor, I'm committed to taking unprecedented action to cut off these states, and then they will have to deal with the consequences of the mess they started because they refused to put in these fraud controls that this administration wants.
Probably not a surprise to many of our viewers that California, New York, leading here with the amount of money that is being wasted. Secretary, I want to move on to another issue with you, because last week you actually participated in the 2026 G7 Labor and Employment Ministers meeting, which was in Geneva, Switzerland. Of course, President Trump is now at the G7. We just saw him a few moments ago. But you did advance President Trump's efforts to strengthen the American workforce. And what are your goals here? Revive U.S. manufacturing and then, of course, expand economic opportunities for workers and businesses that are in this country. What kind of headway did you make last week ahead of the president's visit this week? And what more can you tell us about those meetings?
Well, when I was at the J7 Labor Ministers Conference, I really advanced our agenda, making sure that American companies have an even playing field, that foreign competitors are no longer going to rip off American countries by not enforcing their labor laws. And working directly with Ambassador Greer, I was able to highlight USTR's work to make sure that there's no forced labor in supply chains. And what we've seen across the board, foreign countries don't comply with labor laws. And when they do that, they undercut American businesses who are making those same products by be able to make it cheaper and not respecting international law and not respecting the laws that we have here in the United States. So I told all the G7 labor ministers that the U.S. will no longer get ripped off by them or other countries who are not going to play by the rule. Because the president has committed to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., and we're seeing that by the historic investments, trillions of dollars coming in. But if foreign companies and foreign countries are ripping us off by not having the same labor standards, we're going to use every effort. And I have to commend my colleague, Ambassador Greer. He is using every tool he can to make sure that countries who do not comply with their labor laws and use forced labor or human trafficking are paying the penalties with steep tariffs. So working hand in hand with them, we really made an impact on the global stage, saying American manufacturing is back. And a key part of that is other countries playing by the rules, because America makes the best products. People want products that are made by an American, and it's hard to do that if other countries are ripping us off, and those days are over under President Trump's leadership.
Acting Labor Secretary Keith Sonderling, again, congratulations, and we appreciate you breaking that news this morning with our viewers. Sir, we're going to be watching your work, and we'd like to have you back very soon. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thank you.
All right.